Are you struggling to fill 2 minutes in IELTS Speaking Part 2? If you are, don't worry. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how I answered 4 IELTS Part 2 questions using my strategy and filling 2 minutes easily. Hi everyone, I'm your IELTS tutor Jack, and welcome to another lesson where I help you prepare and develop yourself ready for the next speaking exam. In today's video, I'm going to give you some clips where I have answered part 2 questions. I managed to fill the whole 2 minutes and give some interesting stories and develop my answer. Now, I know I'm a teacher, it's much easier for me, but if you follow my structure and my method, you will be able to do the same. I've also given you the subtitles so that you can follow along to every answer easily. So let's not waste any more time and look at our first question. Talk about a pet that you or someone you know once had. Now, before I answer, it's very wise to use answers that you're very familiar with. So I'm going to choose the same one as I did before, which is the bird. Okay. 2 minutes starts now. I'd like to tell you about my pet Sunny. Sunny was a bird. I say was because unfortunately she passed away. I bought her about 5 years ago when I was living in Korea. I guess I was quite lonely, so I wanted to have a pet to keep me company in my house. My house was quite small, so it was difficult to raise a dog or a cat. I think that would have been unfair to the animal. So I decided to get a bird because I could let the bird fly around my room or my house, but it was kind of a low maintenance choice. And in the end, it was a very good choice. She stayed with me for 5 years and we had a wonderful time. Unfortunately, as I said, after 5 years, she became sick. We don't know why. It was something that just can happen. And unfortunately, she passed away. So that was perhaps 2 or 3 years ago she passed away. Let me tell you a little more about Sunny. She was a small parakeet. It's just a type of parrot. And she was yellow with orange cheeks. She was loud and she had quite a unique character. She was full of energy, full of life, and she really loved flying. So whenever I came home, I opened my cage or her cage and she flew around my house and caused a lot of trouble, but she was a real pleasure to raise. I loved her very much. She gave me a lot of joy, and also to my friends as well. They all really enjoyed seeing her. In the future, I really hope to have another parrot, actually. I'm not sure what species, but I'd like to have another parrot and raise her in the same way. There you go. 2 minutes. Bang on. Describe a book that you have read which you would like to read again. Very simple question. Now, I'm just going to set up my phone with the timer to put 2 minutes. As I said, I'm not going to prepare. We'll go straight into it. So what I'm thinking in my mind is the first book that comes into my mind, which in this case is The Hobbit. And I'm going to follow the structure which I use in my IELTS Plus Academy. I'll summarize that a little more later. So 2 minutes on the clock. Let's try our best. Starting now. I'd like to tell you about my favorite book, The Hobbit. I first came across this book about 15 years ago, so I was quite young. I was perhaps 14 or 15. My father recommended it to me and said it's a classic novel. I read it, and it was one of the first sort of more adult books that I managed to read cover to cover. It was amazing. It was a real page turner. And it really changed the way that I read books as well. It kind of gave me this new habit of reading because it was so exciting. Let me tell you a little more about The Hobbit. The Hobbit is about this creature called a hobbit who goes on this adventure to a mountain. So the whole book is basically following him on this adventurous quest where he goes to a mountain to defeat a dragon and rescue all of the treasure. So it's a pretty basic story. We've heard that in multiple other stories, but it's so well written. And it quickly became my favorite book. I can't say it's my favorite book now, but it's definitely in my top 10. And it leads on to another great book called The Lord of the Rings, which is another book that I've read a lot. It's also, I would say that it really changed my thinking about writing a story and kind of creative thinking. So it was quite an influential book for me. In the future, I hope to read more books like The Hobbit. So I'm always searching for more books from the same author or within the same genre. Oh, I did it again. 2 minutes, bang on. Describe a style of architecture that you like. Okay. 2 minutes starts now. I'm not a big fan of architecture, and I don't really pay much attention to types of architecture. But what comes to my mind is the traditional buildings of the Alps in Europe. I first came across these buildings when I was traveling in Austria and South Germany. And I saw that these buildings had very tall and steep roofs. They also had these balconies with lots of flowers arranged on them, or some kind of a bush or plant. They're also heavily made of wood. So I was really struck by the appearance of them, and I thought they were absolutely beautiful. And by the way, these buildings that I'm talking about are just typical townhouses or houses that are lived in by families. So let me tell you a little more about these houses. As I said, they have a very steep roof, and as I understand, these are made for the snow to fall off easily so that the snow doesn't collect on the roofs. This is important because they are in the Alps in Europe. As I mentioned as well, there are many flowers and these balconies. And what I understand about that is in the summer, they stop the scent of the flowers, or the scent of this foliage stops mosquitoes gathering around the houses. So everything has a function. I loved these houses, and I really hope that I can live in this kind of house in the future. I'm sure they are expensive. I'm sure there are cheaper styles of houses in the towns, but I was really attracted to these Austrian style houses. Okay, there you go, 2 minutes. Describe the job you would most like to have. So, I'm going with the first thing that comes to my mind. Let's give it a try. This is a difficult question, and it really depends on payment. But if I don't really need money, then the job I would most like to have is a guide in the Lake District, which is a national park in England. So I first went to the Lake District when I was perhaps 6 years old. This is a national park, and it's full of lakes and mountains, and I would say it's a beauty spot in England that everyone should go to. It's absolutely incredible. And I loved spending time there, and I actually got to know this national park so well, I could name every mountain by sight. And I think you could drop me anywhere in that national park and I would be able to find my way out very easily. So let me tell you a bit more about this job being a guide in the national park. Now, I've never used a guide myself, but I imagine that a guide would have to help people who are going on hiking trips, or they would have to explain different parts of the park. Perhaps they would have to do work in the park, like maintaining footpaths or mapping, something like that. I think there would be a variety of roles or things that you need to do in that job, but most importantly, you're spending a lot of time in the mountains, and this is what I would love to do more than anything. Of course, you wouldn't be paid much, so I'd have to be financially stable if I were to take that job. In the future, I hope to have enough money that I can actually apply for that job, and fingers crossed that job becomes available and I can actually apply for it. Okay, there you go. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson and I hope you learnt a lot. There are going to be more videos coming very soon, and most importantly, I'm going to give you my whole IELTS Part 2 structure and strategy. That's what's going to help you answer Part 2 in the exam. So I'll be back very soon. Please hit the like button and subscribe to become part of the IELTS Plus community. I look forward to seeing you very soon, and don't forget, review today's lesson and study hard.